It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
This is the Cosmic Voice. Cosmic Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business with your hosts, Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cosmic Voice. This is Season 5, Episode 18. I am here with my co-host, Chris Natalini.
What's up? What up? What up?
And I am Mick Michaels. Welcome back, everyone, to another show. Chris, my good brother from another, how are you?
Everything's good, man. You're good on your end?
I'm good. Busy. Like the guy from Frosty the Snowman. Busy. See, my Christmas reference, already got it.
We're starting. Here we come.
Not even a full minute and a half into the show. That means Kiss is right around the corner. Bang!
That's right around the corner, buddy. Right around the corner.
Just by saying Kiss, we've already done it. Already done it.
Not even 2 minutes in the show.
Not even 2 minutes into the show. Speaking of which, they're doing their final 50 this year.
Yes.
And there's already talk about the Las Vegas residency. Of course they're going to do it. They're going to do their 50. They're going to take maybe a couple months off. And then, boom, they're going to do at least a month, maybe longer, I'm sure, out of Vegas. Why wouldn't they?
Dude, listen.
Why wouldn't they?
Why wouldn't you, man? I mean, listen, Aerosmith did it. I think Def Leppard did it. I want to say, did the Scorpions even do it? Like, when
Tesla's doing it. I think they did it for 3 days, and then they expanded it to 7, and they're calling it a residency. So if you just show up, it's a residency at this point. No, Eddie Trunk did say, listen, he goes, no offense to Tesla. I love him a lot, but a residency's got to be at least a month or more. 3 days don't count.
That is true. I saw, if you remember, when Chris Angel, the magician, or illusionist, I guess, when he was real popular, when he was doing a residency, I believe at the Luxor, I saw an interview with him one time, and he was like, the cool thing, and I'm going back a number of years, obviously. It always stuck with me. And the one thing he said was like, I like the residency because I can live here, which he was staying at the Luxor. I can live here and people can come to me. I don't have to travel out. I don't have to deal with all that planes and hotels. And I literally stay in one spot and people come to me. And I was like, that's kind of a cool idea. And then, of course, I think when Aerosmith did it, I think Steven Tyler said the same thing. Like, we don't have to deal with touring. We'll let people come and see me. Barry Manilow did it and all this. And I think it's a great thing. I mean, why not, man? I mean, you go to Vegas, how cool is it to go see one of your heroes or one of your favorite bands or artists, whatever, whether it's Celine Dion, who cares? Like, it's just really cool to go to Vegas and go, I'm going to go see a show too that, of someone that I enjoy. I think that's kind of cool. So why wouldn't they? They're going to get if they do it, they're going to get a ton of money. Why wouldn't they?
I agree. Why not? Right? It's a built-in crowd. I mean, because I've done some reading on it and things like that. And I guess it depends on how long you do it. A lot of the bigger name performers don't book past a certain time. But there are the people, like Celine Dion did it for a number of years. Marie Osmond, they went out for, I think it was like a year. They wound up doing it for like 10 years.
Right.
But there are also acts, like say with the Osmonds, Donnie and Marie, there are acts that at one point in their time were so mega huge, and people don't even realize that in 2023 how big the Osmonds were in the 70s. Like it was like Beatlemania, that it was like Osmond mania. That's how crazy it was. So sometimes people go, oh, the Osmonds, and they start to snicker and all, but like, man, if you go back in time, it's like, holy crap. So you have that section of the population that has the Osmonds still in the back of their head. That was the teeny bopper years for them or whatever. So that makes sense, but they reached their peak, and this is a good way just to stay relevant again. There's always that concern to me, like, unfortunately, Elvis is the downside of what happens when you do a long-term residency. Like, he became a lounge act. Like, I was just talking to somebody yesterday who works with a gentleman who's in his 70s, who he and his wife seen Elvis during those residencies, in the earlier part of the 70s, like kind of like in between when the guy said he wasn't skinny Elvis, but he wasn't the heavy-set Elvis. He was kind of in the middle. And he said it was okay. It was a laid-back show. The place wasn't packed. It was an early show because he was doing 2 shows a day. He was doing an early show and then a late show. He goes, Elvis gave it his all. This particular gentleman, his wife even got one of Elvis's scarves. You know, like anybody that was an Elvis fan knows that Elvis would put about 10 scarves on and go around and hand one out. And I'm like, well, man, just that alone to me. Yeah. But there's the truth in it because I know that the movie, if you've seen the Elvis movie, it's a cool movie. There's a little bit of, you got to take some things with a grain of salt, even though they say it's accurate. There is some, depending on what you read. But it was a good movie, definitely a good movie. They have it that it was packed nonstop. But that's not really the truth when you talk to people who were there. Because I think he was doing 6 days a week, and I may be incorrect in that, 6 days a week, 2 shows. And the shows were at least 2 hours. I mean, you think of, listen, I did 2 shows back to back with a studio run, and I'm shot, and I wasn't even the singer. So you could imagine what that was taking on him. And then the pitfalls of such a thing, he became over-medicated to keep him going, right?
Right, to keep him going.
Could have been the inspiration for The Wall. I don't know. Maybe.
I think, too, you know, with those residencies, I'd be interested to know, and I kind of already know the answer, but I wonder what the percentage of people that go to see those shows are there and just go to the show because they're a fan, or what the ratio is of people that travel to go see that show and stay in Vegas, or go to stay in Vegas and go see that show. You know what I mean? Like, I wonder what that ratio is. And, you know, of course, there's going to be that, you're going to get those hardcore fans of whatever artist you're going to see. Of course, you're going to fly out there to go to Vegas, see the show, and just stay in Vegas. I wonder what the ratio of
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, you'll have specific fans that will go there to see the band. Then you'll have people that kind of are wishy-washy and go, well, I'm in the hotel, I'll go see the show. And then there's people that are there in town and like, well, what shows are available? Like, we want to do something. I have been to Vegas a couple times. I'm not a huge fan of it. I'm not a gambler, I'm not a smoker, and I don't like overpaying for anything if I don't have to. I played Vegas too, which was kind of cool. That in itself as a musician is like, oh, this is kind of cool, you know? But I remember we was like, well, what shows are out there? You know what I mean? What shows, like, you know, and there's, I mean, there's stuff all over the place. On the Strip, blocks off the Strip, you know, there's multiple shows going on. Yeah. So I'm that kind of guy. What shows are happening? And then the next question is, what shows are really affordable do I want to, because again, go back to my number 2 rule, I don't want to overpay for anything. So, and again, some of the bigger name stuff, you're not getting price tiers. But then you have like, hey, Chris Angel cost me, I have to remortgage my house. And then I'll go see some 2-bit guy, and then I can at least get 3 people in and maybe get a soft pretzel. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I mean, listen, if they do it, good for them, man. You know, they're at that age where they don't need to tour, and go through all that traveling stuff. And, if they could just set up and keep stuff set up and be in a controlled environment, then rock on, man. Good for them.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I think it's great.
Ton of money.
Another thing I always think of is, not to prolong getting to the topic, but if the Beatles were given the opportunity to do that, to do a residency, would they have done it? I don't know. Like, if they stayed around long enough. Comedians and other solo singers had done what would be considered now a residency. They just did appearances quite often.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But I think it was Elvis that really set the tone of what a residency and a big production was like. And I'm just wondering if the Beatles did stay into the 70s, would they have done something like that? Now, they had stopped touring completely for a number of reasons, and from what I read, they felt that it was poor sound, the exhaustion that they felt of touring, and they were young guys, and the increased risk of security that they were starting to. And I really think that third one was probably more of the bigger aspect in making, kind of once they stopped touring, they stayed in the UK. So I don't know, would they have done it? I don't know, maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see if they would have.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Anyway.
It's Ross the Boss.
Take it down.
This is Stephen Pearson from Rat, the Rat Bastard. You're listening to the Cosmick Voice.
All right. So the topic for tonight is, and just as a note, so we've done our Kiss and Christmas reference. Already. So who knows what's going to happen for the rest of the show. All right. So the topic for tonight is the rising cost to tour. For bands and artists, the rising cost to tour in 2023. It's been on a soaring, rocketing path since, I guess, the gates opened in the pandemic. Basically, since 2021, touring costs have been out the roof, and it seems not to be stopping. There's no leveling right now. Chris, what do you think about it, buddy?
I think it sucks, man. I think it sucks. I myself have been the victim of rising tour costs. I guess last year I was supposed to be heading overseas to a festival. And what happened was, and actually the same festival, I was not a part of this coming up this year, but the same festival canceled again. Apparently, when I talked to my European friends over there that run the festival, and apparently, what's happening is between gas, the war has affected Germany, inflation, people having trouble working, making ends meet, flights, hotels, bands getting paid. What's happening is that a lot of people, and I'm only speaking in the fest that I know of because I have direct contact and I understand the workings of what's going on behind the scenes. Apparently what's happening is people are picking and choosing. When everybody was able to tour and play out at, this year, and you and I have spoken about it off the air. We may have even talked about it on the air. There are so many shows happening right now. My calendar is filled with shows, a lot of them during the week, which is super interesting to me. Just filled with shows, big acts, smaller acts, like everybody just broke out. And there are a ton of festivals, especially in the community that you and I are deeply involved in, the metal community. There are so many festivals going on. What's happening is with when I was talking to, when these festivals in Germany canceled, their problem is the pre-sales. People aren't, they're spending their money other places. They're not necessarily buying tickets to a smaller festival. Because they can't afford the bigger festivals and the smaller festivals. So they're picking and choosing. And unfortunately, the smaller festivals, the ones that I was supposed to be a part of, aren't doing well. They're not making money. And that's all over there. That's not just the festival that I was involved in. There are many small festivals over there that every day I keep seeing getting canceled because the pre-sales are abysmal because people are spending their money on the bigger festivals. You know what I mean? Like 500,000 people would rather go see Wacken and spend their money there than, the smaller festivals where they're only seeing, with Wacken, I think it's like 2 or 3 days where, the smaller festival, it's like 2 days and a bunch of bands in a smaller venue. And people are picking and choosing. When in 2019, before COVID, when I was over in Europe, those places were sold out, packed houses. And when we were on those festivals, well, now those same festivals, they're getting canceled because people just can't afford it. And it's happening over here too. We see it every day. If you pay attention to rock or music news, you're seeing it every day. You're seeing that, venues are taking, money of merch. You're seeing that bands are trying to fight these bigger ticket companies for these fees. And listen, we all know it. Everybody listens to the show. We're all involved. We're all dealing with it. We're dealing with high costs of food, high costs of gas, high costs of living. And, maybe your job's not paying enough to make those ends meet. That when they give you a raise, it doesn't matter because everything's up and you're not making any extra. You're just staying the same. And, we as blue collar working people aren't, we're having trouble making ends meet. And it's the same way with touring. These bands are having so much trouble touring because buses and vans are hard to get a hold of because everybody broke out and is trying to make the money that they lost. And it's bad, man. Merchandise, those costs are up. My newer band just got a bunch of T-shirts and it costs us a little more in T-shirts because of the rise in costs. And it's crazy, man. It really, and it's sad too, because even myself, there's many shows that, again, like I said, that are coming around and I have to kind of pick and choose because there is so many and some are super, super expensive. I wanted to go see the Metallica tour When they're playing New York, they're doing like 2 dates, and it's just really, really super expensive. You and I spoke about Kiss off the air and how expensive those tickets were, and unfortunately, buying bands merchandise has gone up because of the rise in costs of touring, and it's sad, man. I understand. I never really minded paying a little extra, for a T-shirt or whatever at a live venue, because I know it goes to the band, but as we get older, we find out that not all that money's going to where it should be. Of course, right? It's the music business, because that's how it goes. The artist is the one that suffers the most when they're putting out the most. If it wasn't for the artist, the merchandise people, the people running the booths at the at the venue, nobody'd be getting paid if it wasn't for the artist, and yet the artist is making the less money out of everybody. It's kind of a crappy thing, man. And unfortunately, in this day and age, things go up because they can, and it's just as simple as that. There are things that you may see in your everyday life that you go, why is this? Like, I understand maybe we talk about eggs or milk or bread or whatever. We may understand why gas, we may understand why that's gone up, but why did coffee go up? Like what? Where is that? How does that work? But you find out that a lot of companies are just raising their prices because everybody else is raising their prices, and there may be a company that goes, well, we don't necessarily have to raise our prices, but because we can, because everybody else is, making more money. So why shouldn't we? And that goes down to the artist too, and touring. And it's just awful, man. It's really bad right now. And it's very disappointing, because I was hoping, and I think I even said on the show that, I thought that when the world was finally back to some kind of normalcy, that the music business would be awesome. Everybody would just be, on the same level, and it would just be all this great things and everybody coming back. And it literally has just exploded into this array of just darkness and depression and just non-positive things because it's so expensive. And unfortunately, the bands are the ones that's suffering. Like I said, the festivals that I was supposed to be a part of, they were great. They just couldn't afford it. And even we'd even offered to take some of the costs off of their end for us. And as helpful as it just wasn't, they couldn't do it. They just couldn't do it. And it's super disappointing. But I understand it. There was another festival that we were supposed to be a part of this year overseas. And the promoter just ended up sticking to bands from his country and close by, which I totally understand. It wasn't that much of a risk for him, and I get it. I totally understand it, and I'm certainly not mad about it. I'm bummed about it, because we were really looking forward to going over there. But it's just one of those things, man. And you just kind of hope that maybe we'll get out of this and we'll see some light on the other side. But right now, with everything going on in the world, and it's just really bad. It's bad, and it's a shame that people that love music so much and go into shows, that they have to pick and choose what shows they go to.
It has not been easy. We all thought that once we had started to rise above the pandemic, the restrictions, that, we could get back to what we were doing before in the same capacity. And as we talked about many times, and we mention it almost daily as we talk to one another, that things are completely different than prior to the pandemic. And you can't ignore that. No. The industry changed. The world changed. It was literally, a leveling. So, and I agree with you when you say that there's places that you're saying, well, why is the price going up? I guess if you did enough research, you can find the path of why this is going up. But there are people that are putting up their prices because everyone else is. Because they can, because either they were holding off before, or they figured, well, listen, why not, right? Because our industry is built about making money. So I get that. But what's happening is from the commodities and products and services that we're trying to utilize, is that trickle-down effect where it's just costing the consumer. All this change in the music industry has cost the audience. And you've said it yourself. You never bought insurance for tickets and things like that.
No.
And now you almost have to.
Yeah.
So
I buy every one.
Yeah.
I buy it in every one.
And there's a markup on that. They're making money. It's not like it's costing them per se. You're doing electronic fund transfer. They can do one back to you. There's really no man hours. Like, it's man seconds, if that. Right. I'm trying to man-explain it. So, mansplain. And then these other fees have popped up, and they're almost the price of the ticket in some regards. Like, so if somebody's offering and I'm just going to throw out numbers. Say there's a show and there's some deal on the ticket. It's like $45, and most people go, hey, you know what? $45 isn't that bad. But by the time you're all said and done, you're pushing like $92.18. Like you have all these fees that I don't even understand. Now, no one wants to do the cost of business. They don't want to pay for it, so they charge the customer the cost of business. And by that, I mean they're charging you the fees that they would be charged by the credit cards or the money exchange platforms and all that stuff. So instead of like them writing that off on their own ledger, they're going to just charge it to the customer, and they have to pay it. So we're paying not only to see the show, but we're paying for them to provide us the ticket to the show, like in a business sense, if that makes any sense. And I just think it's crazy. In regards to the topic and touring, basically, this is what some of these panels, right, these experts have gotten together and spoke for the rest of us as to why things are the way they are. And a lot of these panels, they discuss more of not the artist perspective or what the artist can do to tour or to affordably tour. Because really, for some people, the option is you either tour and you deal with it, and you're constantly digging into your pocket, or you don't tour.
You don't tour.
You don't tour.
Yeah.
Then what's the option? They've made it black and white, and is it really black and white? I don't know. But anyway, a lot of the panels are saying that the change started to become as it is because, one, many festivals and venues have shut down since the pandemic. Yeah. They no longer exist. At the same time, people have left the industry since the pandemic. Yeah. So that means bookers, promoters, advertisers, musicians themselves. And you talked about that in the recent podcast where people got used to being at home or seeing what they missed. And they said, you know what, I'm not touring anymore. So then you had to hire musicians. Listen, there's still a section of the population worldwide that still has the fear. And they don't want to put themselves in a situation where something can happen and they can't come out of.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, 100%.
There's still that. It still exists. And because of everything that happened to the lead up of the shutdown, people lost tons of money. I mean, I know that firsthand, being over in the UK when pandemic hit and our country was shutting down. We had to cancel the rest of the tour. We lost money. The sponsors that were part of that tour lost money, the venues and so I understand that. It's not like stadium tour of Motley Crue kind of money, but
right.
It's relative to the level that you're at.
Dollars a dollar.
Dollars a dollar. So you have that, and then because of the inflation of industry period, you have this thing now that you have this, it's like the elephant in the room. You're missing all these venues, you're missing all these people that were involved in the industry. They're gone. Costs have soared. You have these musicians on the other side, and you're like, well, how do I now bridge that gap? And that's kind of where we're stuck into. What's happening is, like you had said, and like, so Stryper I remember they canceled almost a month worth of shows because they couldn't get a tour bus.
Right. Yeah,
like,
remember that.
There was like a limitation in the tour buses. You had a limitation of drivers for those tour buses. Mm-hmm. And then the cost was outrageous because it literally like doubled. The ones that were left were already booked up. So a lot of these guys were using some of the same tour buses, or they were even sharing buses. And the rising cost of gas. So not only is the bus itself, the driver, everything that goes with that, just to move it from point A to point B, has soared. And if you're watching gas prices, they're constantly going up and down within that 20, 30 cents, depending on your area. And you're wondering, why are they going up day to day? Why is this drop from here? It's like none of it makes sense. But it's costing now to go from city to city, town to town. Speaking on our level, on that Indian to Trench level, fuel costs, toll costs, travel costs are huge. Because if you're traveling, just say you are traveling to another country, you're going to have to rent a car. If you already have a handler and they're providing you with maybe you're not paying right there on the spot, but you're paying somewhere down the line.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
But my point is you'll have to rent a vehicle. That costs. So traveling costs in that regards is crazy. This is why a lot of bands have decided to stay where they're at and just play a smaller circuit, which is no different than what some bands did before. But bands that you were used to seeing hit a larger area have now shrunk that area. The rise of those bands that will stay to 4 or 5 venues within a, let's just say, no more than an hour and a half drive is what you're seeing. And because of the decrease in venues, and we were just talking about this before we went on air, you would frequent a place and it's your only place to frequent in that area when you play it, you're running the risk of not being able to play it because everybody else is trying to play it.
Yeah.
So because you have less venues, you have all these bands. Again, going back to the expert panels, they're saying that a lot of, now, again, and I'm not 100% on this because it seems like no matter what, at the end of the day, and I guess for media to move some of their articles, somebody has to put the finger on somebody. So they go back to the oversaturation of music and artists. So all of a sudden it falls back on the artist. It's our fault because we're creating. Now, I don't know if that's really the sentiment or I'm just reading it wrong, which is possible. Who knows? I haven't had my breakfast yet this morning, so it's possible. But to say that, okay, listen, we've talked about it. There is an oversaturation of music. It is everywhere. You have 1 million new uploads a month now. And that's just from the platforms that are putting it out there. What about people that are just posting it on Facebook or their other social media or their own websites? That stuff all counts. It may go uncounted, for a lack of a better word, right? Unstatted, but it's out there. I'm sure there's a percentage of it. There's tons of new artists all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So they're saying that the oversaturation of the music, of artists, and of bands that want to tour. Well, of course bands want to tour. That's almost silly. You want to bring the music to the people. What else are you going to do? Now, listen, I know during the pandemic we did a lot of that online streaming, and there's people that are still doing it. But it doesn't replace the live setting. People still want to get together, enjoy a night out, I guess, with friends, drinking, eating, and enjoying live music.
Yep.
We still run the risk of original music is a tough sell. It's a tough sell, and most bands have started to incorporate more and more covers. I'm seeing it with the original bands, and I'm seeing more and more cover bands pop up. Tribute bands, which is just a glorified cover band in my opinion, have quadrupled in amounts since the pandemic. They're all over the place.
All over the place.
And venues are opting to go with them more often than original bands. You may have original nights, if you're lucky, once a week, maybe even once or twice a month.
And then unfortunately that we've seen the reasoning. We've seen that there are more people going to see tribute bands than original music.
Oh, yeah. I've seen it. I've seen that they've put tribute and cover bands with original bands, even with national acts, to draw people in. And I've said this before. Even a bad cover band gets a good response.
Yeah.
I mean, the people couldn't sing, or maybe they're not even playing the song correctly. If they recognize it, that's all that counts.
That's all that counts.
It's like something goes off in the brain, and they're not hearing that band anymore. They're hearing the original song, and I guess which keeps them at the bar longer.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
You have your lack of venues. One venue I spoke to in New England, they only do a metal night once a quarter. That's it. And you know what day?
A Wednesday or
no,
a Sunday afternoon?
It's a Sunday afternoon.
Sunday afternoon.
It's an early show. Yeah. Right? Because you know what I'm talking about. Once a quarter. And that's
amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And there's venues, what I call clubs. They're not even clubs. They're just venues that nationals come through.
Yeah.
They're not even booking rock and metal acts anymore.
No.
They're booking ethnic groups because of the draw. They're booking the pro and amateur wrestling. Mm-hmm. I mean, everything from, this is what they call it, midget wrestling to female wrestling to, the high wire stuff. They're bringing this into their venue, along with the, the Magic Mike dancers and all that kind of stuff, because they're drawing people.
Those are drawing people,
again, when this airs, this will already be older news, but Godsmack canceled their spring tour because of low ticket sales, or soft ticket sales as they call it. On a side note, they've been one of those bands that people love to hate now. They were real big, and then they love to hate them, kind of like Creed and Nickelback. They kind of fall into that because they were that early 2000 era type band. Now, I've seen them in concert. I've seen them with Metallica years ago. They put on a great show, great sound. I know there's been things in the press that they've said over the years, or Sully has said over the years, that maybe have rubbed people the wrong way. He's that kind of guy. You know,
but I don't even know. Even in this day and age, I don't even know how much that would affect them now. Like, because there are many artists that have done really dumb stuff that are still selling out places. But yeah, it's crazy. Even smaller venues, like I'm sure they're not pulling. I'm sure they weren't, booked at big stadiums or, big, hockey stadiums or basketball stadiums. They certainly weren't playing, big football, baseball stadiums, but they were probably playing, small little venues. And for them to go, listen, we can't even play small venues. Like, that's crazy to me. And it's not like it's, Godsmack had some songs back in the day. And it's crazy to me that they can't even fill small venues.
You are listening to The Cosmic Voice with your hosts, Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels.
So what some of these bands are doing is they're just repeating their cycle twice. I'll give you an example of a major band or a bigger national band like Trap. They're doing a spring tour this year. They're kind of almost following the same route that they did in the fall, late summer, fall. They're going to go back to the venues that will offer them whatever it is that they're looking for, or where they know they have a small draw, right? That at least it's going to be something for them. So when those bands are coming through, your other lesser known bands or, indie in the trench guys, you're not going to get an opportunity. There's no guarantee that you're going to have the draw, but you're out there trying to tour and build an audience and make contact. And the oversaturation umbrella does cover it, but it just covers it. But it doesn't give you really a reason. And what I'm seeing with these panels and everybody else is no one's giving assistance in what are we supposed to do as the indie independent artist. Like I said, the two things that you keep reading is you're either paying for it yourself or you don't tour. Like if you see all of a sudden now, there's places that are pushing, get your CDs out there. Start pushing CDs. Do this, do that, online content, all this kind of stuff. Because, again, and what does that do? That drives another end of the industry where the artist is still paying for that as well.
Yeah.
And then sooner or later, you're going to have all this, and then it's going to be oversaturated there, and nobody's buying anything anyway. Most people don't buy CDs unless they're at the show, right? For a band like me, the merch table is big. It's important. That's where I sell CDs. I don't ship out that many CDs. I ship out some every month, but I'm not talking about like, come on, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm not, I can't count on it. But when I play a show, the CD's right there.
Yeah.
If they're buying a T-shirt and they still got some change, I'll make the deal. That's the way we work. So bands like us, you, me, all the bands that we work with, merch sales are key. And like we talked about, in another episode, that's why we get merch. So we can make a little bit more to fund some other stuff. And we can only do that if we're touring.
It falls right down the line, right? Like a band asks for so much money to tour. Come to find out now that as social media has become popular, you're coming to find out that those bands aren't making all the money that you think they are because the tickets are expensive because of fees. And, now all these major ticket companies, which is unbelievably to me, and nothing irritates me more, that these major ticket companies are in cahoots with the third-party sellers now. Like they own them. So now they're making more money, plus the fees, plus, the percentages that they take in merchandise, which means now the merchandise is more expensive because the band's trying to make their money back. And, do we really want to pay $50 a shirt? Obviously, some people do, and then that's fine. I don't judge people that pay that kind of money for a T-shirt. I totally understand it. The artist isn't getting anything. And and they're the ones that are paying more to get to your town.
They're the ones doing the work.
They're the ones doing the work, and everybody else is making money. And it's just amazing to me that in this day and age that the artists still are not making what they should be making because they're paying. Of course they got to pay their people and production costs and lawyers and all that stuff, and that's always been there. But now they have to charge more because now there's more fees and stuff coming out.
To your point, there's bands that are going out, bigger bands that are going out and not bringing road crews. Or it's just one guy because they can't afford it, right? They can't afford the space, they can't afford the pay, they can't afford whatever. We don't bring anybody out on tour. We do the stuff ourselves, which is even more taxing. Your case in point to the tickets, the singer from The Cure, they're so angry right now because they set a low ticket price, right? And then to get their audience there because they understand what's happening, the monopoly on the Ticketmaster and Live Nation and whatever, because it's almost like you said, they're all the same company. They add all these extra things in. Speaking of which, we'll go back to Kiss, their 50 last shows, the Madison Square Garden tickets, the pre-sale, you couldn't even touch. I mean, there was nothing. Most of them went into resales within 15, 20 minutes. Then the next day when they went live, or the 2 days after, whenever it was, the lowest nosebleed was $550. That was at that point.
And that's disgusting.
And that was already reseller. You weren't buying them. It's like, are you kidding me? I think first row or within that first couple rows was up to like 7,000 something. Like, are you kidding me, man? That's crazy. But, I mean, of course, are people going to pay it? Yes, they will. Because if there's someone willing to pay, no one's ever going to say, well, we made a mistake. Right. And like you said, costs will continue to go up. They're not going to come down. They may level off, but they're never going to go backwards. Like I said, it's not Scooter Tuna, man.
Right. Back in the day when I was a kid, or when I was younger and able to afford my own tickets, and, I wasn't bumping up mom and dad for money.
Now your wife just pays for them.
Yeah, well, that's true too. I used to be able to, like, if there was a show I wanted to see and I didn't want to sit in the nosebleeds, I could go to the Yellow Pages and I could find all these ticket agencies, right? And then I could call around and find the best deal. And most of the time, these little ticket agencies were double the actual ticket price. So if a ticket was $100, I could call Dave's Ticket Service and get it for $200, right? But I got like third row or there's many shows I've been to that I paid double the ticket price to get a upfront seat, because back then, I didn't know how to get those front row seats. Well, now forget it. You're not even, I mean, like you had just said, the ticket sales online day of show, they're triple, quadruple more ticket price, because now your third party seller are the ones that are actually selling the tickets. And that is disgusting to me, that these companies are now in cahoots with the Seat Geeks and the Vivid Seats or whatever they're called. Like, that is disgusting to me. Now, and I'll give you an example. I just bought tickets to a super small show at like a super small venue. Tickets were literally $17 to see an old school West Coast metal band from back in the day. And they were $17, right? Like, no big deal. So this whole, like, you're charging me to print at home is ridiculous to me. Like you're charging me to print at home, ridiculous. So I didn't choose that. So I chose will call. Well, now you're charging me for will call. I think it was $5 a ticket or whatever it was. I'm like, really? You're charging me for will call? But I understand, because you got to pay the person at the window. Okay, I'll let that go. And then insurance per ticket. Now I've spent, listen, at the end of the day, it was only $56 or whatever it ended up being. But I'm like, my ticket was $17. Like, there was, what, 2 tickets was like $34? Like, now I'm up to like $60 because of all these fees. I'm like, and that's just a small show. That's not even these big venue, big hockey rink, basketball places. It's unbelievable to me. And it's just utterly disgusting.
Yeah, well, you know what's happening? You know what's happening? Like, so they're charging you to print at home. I can't even understand that. Like,
how do they get away with this?
I don't even think that you get a hard ticket sent to you option anymore.
No.
And then the other thing is, like, some say you can't print, you can't scan, you can't take a screenshot. You have to show the digital
Yes.
thing. And you know what they're
Yes.
doing is they're pushing people to get the app. Because once they
Yes.
have you in the app, that's what I mean. So, like, they've limited your options, and the options they do give you, most of them you have to pay. So you take the one that you don't have to pay, and then you got to set up an app, and then you're inundated with nonstop just garbage. It's unbelievable what's going on with the ticket prices because, again, like you said, most of the artists aren't getting it.
Nope.
The audience is paying for it, and somewhere that money goes to somebody. Because here's the thing, those man hours are still probably less than what we're paying. I mean, when you rack it up and you do the numbers, it's like, come on, you stop. Minimum wage is minimum wage, and as we said, as prices soar, nothing is balanced out or evened out because what people are making in their job hasn't changed, hasn't raised much. It's not,
Right.
you know, even if it hasn't caught up to the times.
No.
Minimum wage should have went up 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And again, we're not an economic show, but it does come down to what people are paying. And I'll go back to, you still have that percentage of the population that are paying. So as long as people are paying, then they're going to keep charging.
Yeah.
It's got to be a hand-in-hand thing, right? Like either the audience stops paying and says, we're not going to do this anymore, and you're never going to have people 100% on board with that because it's a me world. And the other thing is, the artists need to just put their foot down and go, listen, we have to stop this. By doing that means they're not touring, and by not touring and doing all this stuff means they're not making money. And some of these artists depend on it, right? They're all not at the Metallica status or Bon Jovi where they could, have a restaurant and give away the food for free type of thing, right? So some of these guys, that's their only job. That's their only source of income, and they're not even making $50,000 a year if they're even lucky.
Yeah.
It's show to show. Look, guys, you could do the math. Your average guy could get $1,500 a show, and the name, but they're not really having the draw.
Yeah,
they have 5 bands that sell tickets prior to the thing. That's who pays them.
Yeah.
And the venue is overcharging anyway.
Yeah.
There's no ticket fees. And so that's why we go back to saying, if you're going to buy tickets to a show, buy them off the band that you're going to go see. Because there are no ticket fees. Well, or they're already kind of worked into the face price of the ticket one way or the other. It doesn't matter. Some of these guys are printing them off their own dot matrix. Right? So it's like you could see, not a lot of money's been put into that ticket. Piece of paper, cut, right? Lines ain't straight. Go sharpen them scissors, buddy.
This whole inflation thing with the rise of cost of touring, like it's gotten to the point now where it literally is it's out of hand. And unfortunately, bands and us fans are the ones that suffer. These big companies, no matter who it is, they don't care. They'll just find somebody else. They'll just move on to the next. But if you're a fan of whatever band and you can't afford to go, it's a really crummy thing. And or these, you're waiting to see your favorite band and they can't get here if they're from Europe or even from the States. Maybe they can only afford 7 dates. So now you have to travel 3 or 4 hours to go see your favorite band because they can't get to your city, because it's just too expensive. And that, as an artist, as someone that is held up in a rehearsal spot, writing lyrics, writing songs, spending time, recording, doing all this hard work, and I'm not able to get it to the people, that really sucks because I can't afford to get there. And that's a really crummy feeling.
Well, here's what Google says, when you do a search, just so you could see, why are concerts so expensive these days? And this is what they're saying. It's the woes of inflation impacting the cost of gas, musical equipment, and other items it takes for them to hit the road.
And that makes sense.
It's at least 30 to 40% more expensive today, and that was as of December 2022, to tour than it was pre-pandemic. Now I'm going to tell you something. 30 to 40%, that's pretty much, that's your entire income. That's whatever you think you were going to profit. That's above profit. Like you're already going into the red. You're into the red before you even hit the road. Yeah. Before you even say, hey, I'm going to tour this year, you're already in the red. And you got to figure it out. But the funny thing is musical equipment. Yes, musical equipment has gone up. I'll give you a quick example, not like it makes a big difference. The guitar I use primarily on tour, I bought a number of years ago. I got it for $400. That guitar now still is being sold. It's double the price. How is that possible? It's the same guitar. It doesn't make sense. It's the same material. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's just unbelievably crazy.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is if you see a lot of these bands that are touring, they ain't using that great of equipment. Half of them are using the opening acts equipment.
Yeah.
I have supplied
they're not even traveling with it.
so many nationals with equipment.
Yeah.
With equipment.
Yeah.
Drums,
Yeah.
cymbals, hardware, heads, cabinets. Thank God I'm left-handed. I've never come in contact with another left-handed guitar player on a national circuit. But I have seen bands travel without guitars.
Yeah.
And they have the venue provides them with something. And this was even pre-pandemic. But I'm seeing it more and more now because a lot of these guys that are touring, and again, I'm not going to name any names because that's not what this is about, but they're not touring in vans. They're not touring in buses. No. They're literally touring in Toyota Corollas. And whatever they can fit into that trunk, and it's usually maybe 3 guitar cases and a little pedal box or something like that. And then they need room for their wig and their change of clothing, which is the same outfit every other day. So, 4 pairs of underwear and you just wash them through the sink. Come on, man. And listen, I know because I've been dealing with setting up a tour this year. I know the cost.
Yeah.
We're doing a similar tour that we did in 2020, now in 2023. You're talking literally it's 3 years and 1 month difference from the time we'll be there. And the cost, the difference in cost it's staggering.
Yeah.
So
sure.
Some of your methods aren't going to work. So for bands like us, for artists like us, you have to get as creative as possible. And if you go back to our episode on bands making money, that's kind of what we're talking about. If you want to tour, then you do it. You may have to come to terms with, I can do this, or I can do this. You may have to make some choices. You be honest with yourself. Again, your choice is you either do it and you kind of work around it, or you don't do it.
Yeah.
And if you want to do it, then you'll find a workaround. Maybe that means you got to play smaller places. Maybe that means you do have to book Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Sunday afternoons.
Yeah.
It just works that way. I mean,
Just
listen,
works
we're doing it. We're doing it. I put out the vibe. I'm like, hey, I'll do a Saturday afternoon matinee show. If you read the article, and again, when this airs, it'll be a couple months past maybe. But, Jamie Lee Curtis put a whole thing out there. She's up for bands doing midday shows for the older fans. Dude, I'm on it 100%. Let's do this.
Yep.
I'll get to bed at a regular time. I'm a little bit more up. I don't have to take my 5-hour energy. You know what I'm saying? You get up, you're ready to go. You go to the show, and you're home, man. And you're home. I get it. Listen, us 50-plus guys, let's do matinee shows. Let's do matinee. You know what I mean? Like when they used to do the theaters. You remember when we were kids, you could go to the movie theater, but they had the magician at 1 p.m.? You had the balloons and stuff. A clown would come through, and then you get to see some stupid cartoon movie. I'll be that stupid magician or clown, man. I'll play because I'll get home early enough. Nice dinner, everything. You know what I mean? I'm for it. I don't know. What do you think, buddy? You got anything else you want to add?
No, I've pretty much said it all. I think that, this day and age, unfortunately, we have to pick and choose as music lovers and as fans of bands. And I think it sucks. I think it's a really, really crummy thing right now that we're all dealing with it. Of course, we are all dealing with it in our personal lives. But, since this is a music podcast, it's just a shame because us as artists, all we want to do is just play and get our stuff out there and get it heard and meet people. And it sucks when you can't do it because that's what we've always wanted to do. That's why we do it.
That is why we do it. We make those connections. Again, if you guys want to get out there and you want to tour, be honest with yourself. You can make it happen. Get creative with some of your financing programs and then maybe start out small. I'm a firm believer. Start out small. A nice tight package is better than this loose dangly thing that you're losing stuff along the way. And then at the end you go, what happened to everything? There was a hole in the bag and you didn't see it. Keep it nice and small. Keep it close to you, right in the breadbasket. You'll be okay.
Yep.
If you like that episode, check out some of our other episodes at www.thecosmicvoice.com. Step into the Cosmic Verse and fill that void. Thanks so much for listening. This is the Cosmic Voice. Be sure to check us out at thecosmicvoice.com. Like and follow us on Facebook at The Cosmic Voice. You can find The Cosmic Voice everywhere you listen to online podcasts, like Deezer, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Stitcher, and so many more.
Okay, folks, that will do it for another episode of The Cosmic Voice. Mick and I would like to say thank you very much for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
You're listening to The Cosmic Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business.